I have a sword, I have a sword, 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 sword. I'm a grown-up. Hey everybody! Some of you may already know that I work part-time for Supernova. Supernova is one of Australia's biggest pop culture conventions. It tours around 5 different states, 6 different cities every year. Because of this, I often get questions about my work for Supernova, what it's like to work for Supernova itself and for pop culture conventions in general. So I thought that I'd put together a series of videos discussing exactly that, answering your questions, maybe telling you a bit more about what it is I do, and possibly even showing you some behind the scenes footage if we get really sneaky. But I thought a really good place to start would be where I started working for Supernova and how you might like to start working for a pop culture convention yourself. I started working for Supernova back in, I think it was 2016. In practice, my first role with them was really revolving around social media. I would write posts for things like Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, as well as field inquiries, that sort of thing. 6 times a year though, when a show was actually on, I would switch to being an MC. That meant that I would present and host special guests on stage, as well as hosting panels, and I was even part of the team that started Supernova TV, which is their YouTube channel, where we do videos with interviews with special guests, people like Chris Hemsworth and Lindsay Morgan, and Billy West, as well as a huge number of other names. Around a year ago, I decided to drop all my other duties, so now I just tour with Supernova 6 times a year as an MC and presenter, as well as a host for Supernova TV. So the question I get asked the most is, how did I get started working for Supernova, and how might you get started working for a pop culture convention? Well, every convention is different. I personally started attending Supernova just as a regular attendee over 10 years ago now. And over that time, I got to know some of the people who worked for Supernova already. And when they were looking for someone to fill a new role, they thought of me because they knew about me, they knew about my skills on stage and working in front of a camera, as well as my social media following. Now, if you're not lucky enough to already know some people behind the scenes and get some insider tips on how you might get started working with that convention, I definitely suggest checking out whether or not that convention has a volunteer program. Most conventions do, and that's a great way to build up your skills as well as get to know some of the people behind the scenes. You could even look into taking some courses in things like sound and AV, stagecraft, or event management to build up a skill base that will be really attractive to a convention. A really huge number of elements come together to create a pop culture convention, so I guarantee you that if you really look behind the scenes at what goes on behind a convention, you will find something that really sparks your interest. From there, I really recommend checking out whether that convention's website has a hiring page. Now, it's important to note that a lot of conventions are run by parent companies who take care of more than a pop culture convention. So if you are looking at one of those companies, they are likely to want someone who is interested in doing more than just a Comic-Con. Please do be aware though that working for a convention involves a lot more than what you get to see going as an attendee. And when you are working for the convention, you actually end up seeing a lot less of the convention itself. You have very little time to wander around the floor and check out your favourite artists in Artist Alley, which is the one thing that I really miss the most about being just a regular attendee. I also don't get to cosplay as much anymore because I need to be in a uniform when I'm working. Just like any job, there are lots of really great perks to working for a convention, but it is actually still a job and you do actually still have to do work. Not all of it is sunshine, lollipops, and meeting celebrities. Well, I think that's a pretty good place to stop this first installment, but I'd like to end by answering one of my most asked questions. The question usually goes somewhere along the lines of, what is the best experience you've had while working at a convention? I have to warn you, this might get a little bit sappy. I mentioned a bit earlier that I have been going to conventions as an attendee for more than a decade now. And over that decade, I have seen the attendees at cons really change and develop and grow. The diversity among the people who attend these cons is just mind-blowing. People from all different walks of life, every single identity. The LGBTQIA+ community really has a huge huge representation among the attendees at conventions. And what's really important to me is that every single one of those people, even though they come from all of these different walks of life, feel like they are coming home when they step through the doors of that convention. Every single person seems to find something to relate to. They're all talking about things that they love, mutual interests, things that they have in common. And it is just such an accepting and welcoming environment. Now, I think that a lot of people expect me to say something like, oh, this one person that I met or this celebrity that I got to host on stage was the best experience that I've had. And I have had incredible experiences with people like that. But to me, the biggest and most important ongoing experience that I get to keep having every time that I attend one of these conventions is being a part of this incredible culture that we're developing and growing, and that is changing and evolving with every single show. I know that for me personally, as an MC and presenter, every time I get up on stage at a convention, it is a goal of mine to make sure that every single person in the audience feels welcome and included. I know that when I went to my first Supernova convention, I found a place that I felt I could call home. And it's a great privilege for me to feel like I can be a part of making other people feel that same way. I hope that wasn't too sappy, and I hope that this video gave you some insight into how you might get started in the world of pop culture conventions. If you do have a question, whether it's about my work for Supernova or working for pop culture conventions in general or anything in between, please leave it in the doobly-doo below and I will do my best to answer it. I do have another tour with Supernova coming up next month, but I'd like to get another video at least out before then, so leave me your questions. But until next time, have some heart hands, you glorious nerds. I hereby dub thee Sir Chip of the Chippington Estate.